Hi, and welcome to the last episode of Journal of the Vaccine Year, the final episode of Newsmakers for 2021. We are joined by our all-star panel of top local journalists, Jade Martinez-Pogue of Newshawk, Nick Welsh, the widely acclaimed top columnist in Santa Barbara and the international man of mystery and multi-platforms, Josh Molina. And we have a whole host of special guests who are going to be joining us on this Rockin' New Year's Eve. And just before we start, I'm going to admit the first one, who is no less a figure than Mayor-elect Randy Rowse. Randy Rowse, can you hear us? Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, did we get to do a power ranking on your video production today?
Well, we're having some issues. We're struggling, but we consider them to be challenges, Randy.
Turnabout is fair play, big guy. Okay.
We try to get ahead, and I'm also going to welcome in, I hope, not Wendy, but Wendy's assisting, but Barney Brantingham.
Barney Brantingham, right.
Journalistic icon. Barney, can you hear us?
Jerry,
There he is.
There you are, Barney.
Jerry, good morning.
Good morning. Can you see Jade and Nick and Josh and our Mayor-elect Randy Rowse on your screen?
I see them all.
Okay.
Jerry, you asked me what outstanding thing or things happened in Santa Barbara this year.
Yes.
Well, the answer is nothing.
Nothing, says Barney. All right.
Nothing happened
Well,
outstanding.
there's some entertaining content from Newsmakers Rockin' New Year's Eve. Let's
Wait, Barney still got it. He's going to take the lead no matter what. It's like his calling right there. He's making
That's
it
it. I
perfect.
like it. There's no air in the tire.
I don't want you to
Get
have
from
to,
here.
I don't want you to have to wait.
Perhaps you filed a few more bylines than Barney did. What did you think the number one story of the year was in Santa Barbara?
The number one story was that nothing happened. We don't want anything to happen. Santa Barbarans don't want things to happen.
All right. Well, we'll get to the mayor about that in just a minute.
Housing, apparently.
I'm the man for the job then.
What? Jade, back to
Did you
you.
get your mandate there, Randy?
Are we
I did. I'm all done. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Jade, Jade, save us here. Save us. What? Jade, let me ask you, what did you think the number one story of the year was in Santa Barbara?
I thought we had a few big stories this year, actually. Everything between COVID, but that kind of got old after a minute. I think people are kind of tired of hearing about COVID. But I think the Dormzilla Munger Hall story, that one made national news. So in terms of how far it reached, I thought that was a really big story. All of the Santa Barbara city officials leaving or going on paid time, I thought I liked following that drama as well. Those were a few of my favorites.
All right. How about you, Josh?
I think the man on our screen today, Mr. Randy Rowse, clearly is probably the top story, at least the top political story, because nobody could have predicted that the Democrats would botch things in such a significant way that, almost the guaranteed reelection of the mayor in a city where you have majority Democratic voters. And then we'd have somebody who they'd say, hey, let's restart and do something different. So I think Randy Rowse is a big deal. We have to wait to see. People say he's going to go back to the way things were, which is code for, a lot of different things. Some people say he's going to be great. He's going to be fantastic. He's Mr. Santa Barbara. He's been there. It's going to be great. Communications, people are going to talk to each other, business community. We're going to all get along. We don't really know yet, but I think it's a really exciting time because I think regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever you are, I think we can all agree that it was a good time for a change and a good time for something
Good time
new
for a
and
change,
different.
Nick.
And I will say real quickly, one more other story is
Quick.
school district and the rising contempt for the superintendent. I don't think that story's over yet, but I think when you have an exodus of that many people in cabinet, more to come imminently, I think we're going to see more issues there.
All right, Nick, what do you think? top
There's a
stories?
lot of contenders, obviously COVID, homeless, and then the more quiet implosion of the offshore oil industry, pretty much brought to its knees by one of its own with the pipeline spill about 4 years ago. Currently, there's no offshore oil taking place, and it could end officially this year. But I really have to say that the big story is the pickleball wars that erupted out in Montecito. It's a classic Santa Barbara class struggle scenario in which the billionaires are tooth and fang against the multimillionaires. In this case, you have Beanie Baby mogul Ty Warner, who was, last I heard, was a billionaire, against a guy named Mozilla, who was a former robber baron of county savings.
But
who I
not
think-
related to Dormzilla, I don't think.
Not related to Dormzilla, but he probably is responsible for the 2008 financial crisis and crash because of his criminal lending practices. And Beanie Baby mogul wants pickleball courts out at the Montecito Country Club.
All
And
right.
this will impede the domestic tranquility of Mr. Mozilla. So they're at it tooth and fang.
All right, Mr. Mayor-elect, what do you, I mean, obviously Josh is, I think, right on point in pointing to your election as a big story, and it sort of capped off a whole year of shakeup at City Hall. What's your take on the news year in Santa Barbara?
Well, I certainly hated to be the one to break up Josh's storyline and win the election, but we did. But the point that Josh brought up is the most important one, is communication. And that is what has been lacking on every level, just about anywhere. And we don't talk, we yell, we don't listen, we turn away. And that's been an endemic throughout the entire system that we have here locally, as well as I think in other extremes as well. But having this crew, this august body of journalists in front of me, I feel like I have my finger on the pulse now. It will be nice. I really think that if we can get to the level where we can talk about a subject without starting out the discourse by igniting our hair and running around with our hair on fire, and we can actually listen to each other and have sober adult conversations, I think we can go a long ways in a lot of issues that just turn out to be ad hominem attacks, and listening to regarding who the messenger is as opposed to the message. And I think there's a lot of that. So I think Josh nailed it. I think communication is the big deal.
Yeah, well, Barney, the mayor-elect, has just used two words never associated with me, which are adult and sober. But let me ask you though, having heard this roundtable of other stories, what do you think? How have things changed since you stopped covering? You had your finger on the pulse for so long of the city, and you've been out of it for a little while. What's your perspective now?
Well, you notice that a lot of the things that you guys are talking about occurred outside the city limits of Santa Barbara. They're beyond the jurisdiction of most of the people on your panel. So a lot of it's out there, the pickleball and the Dormzilla. It's not outside.
How about that? All
limits.
right. How about a shout out for the mayor-elect though? That was a big story. You got to admit that one.
Well, it was good because it was a little story. Nothing crazy happened. In Santa Barbara, we don't want crazy things going on.
All right.
Dormzilla is kind of crazy.
All right.
Yes.
Well, speaking of crazy things going on, we
Cheers.
are now joined by City Council member, Coastal Commission, and new mom, Meagan Harmon, who has brought along an extremely special guest, the first baby, maybe more or less, born in 2022. Say hello to John Jack August Harmon, everyone.
Hello, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Here
New
he is.
Year. How are you?
I
How
gotta
are
tell
you?
you, I have no idea if he's going to start screaming or, so you guys are just going to be along for the ride here.
Is he sleeping through the night already?
That is such a grandparent thing to ask. No way. Not even close. I haven't slept since Sunday night.
Well,
Monday?
wait a
When was he
minute.
born?
So he's 4 days old today, I believe. Is that
Yes.
correct?
He was born on Monday night.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And so where do you think he'll be going to college? What have you lined up private school applications for him yet?
Look, I'm hoping Wellesley, he'll be who he wants to be.
Yeah. All
So
right.
look,
How are
at
you?
this point,
And it'll be free college too by then, for sure.
here he goes. He does not like my jokes, so this is going well for us.
What's he
Meagan.
saying? What's he saying? This is his first media appearance, is it not? I believe we have a national scoop here.
It was, and you know what? He was a big diva about it. So, he went with Josh. Sorry, Jerry, for the real first thing.
Jerry, national scoop. That was like, I don't know, 3 days ago. Come on, give me a break.
No, we're talking video here. So Meagan, there are any number of competitors of politicians in Santa Barbara who exploit their children, and you're certainly on the top 10 of that list. But I think this really is a new high.
I know. Well, Randy was texting me, I don't know, 10 minutes after he was born. Are you going to be breastfeeding at my swearing in or,
We got to be prepared. Everything has got to be covered. But Jack and I are definitely going to have to sit down and have some long talks about his mother's legacy because, there's just certain things that he's got to understand about the world before we get too far along down the road.
Well, Meagan, we were just talking about what the biggest stories in Santa Barbara were over the past year. And I know for you, it's a choice between being finally elected and getting appointed to the Coastal Commission. But try to, just get outside that little personal box for a minute. What do you think was the most important story of the year?
Wow. Well, Randy, I'm loath to say this, but I do think the mayoral election was a pretty big one in 2021. And you still owe me a margarita, Randy. So don't.
Yeah, I know. We'll get to that later.
But
Okay.
no, I mean, that was huge. It's a pretty tectonic shift. And certainly for our council, I think it's really going to be a change and it's going to be exciting. So that was a big one. And then honestly, as kind of depressing as this is to say, I think it's just the continued evolution of COVID and how local governments in particular have dealt with moving toward reopening and then getting back to where we are. I mean, it's almost like Groundhog Day. I think I would have said the same thing last year, but truly, I don't think anything can touch that.
Well, that's a good point, Jade. As we move into year 3 of the pandemic, I mean, I would have said probably a couple months ago that the vaccines were certainly the biggest story of the year in the way that the really efficient and outstanding organization of delivery by Cottage and others. Where do we stand on the vaccine or excuse me, on COVID now? And what do you see looking ahead?
Yeah, so it's getting pretty scary again. Our active cases are about 500 more or higher than they were at this point last year, even in the middle of our winter surge that we went through last year. But the good news is that hospitalizations, while they're slowly rising, they're not reaching that same level as they were last year. So from what I can tell, it looks like a lot more people are getting it, but less people are getting as sick and dying, which is good news. But, UCSB announced that they're going online for the first 2 weeks. SBCC delayed their start of the semester. We have the state mask mandate. So I'm honestly really curious to see if those restrictions kind of keep coming back in the levels that they were last year.
Yeah, council member, we're back to masks everywhere, indoors all the time. What was it like to be in the hospital in that type of situation?
I wasn't thinking as much about COVID as I was about when I was going to get the epidurals.
She just wrote the headline. Okay, good.
I know. My mom was like, "Don't mention the epidural on the show," and I just
Apparently it was an important event.
No, but you know what? I have to say, truly, everyone took it very seriously. We had to get tested before we could sort of fully go into the birthing suite, which was a problem for me because, you know, I barely made it into the lobby, to be honest. But yeah, you know, everybody was fully masked. They took tons of precautions and really tried to limit their time in the rooms, which, you know, for us was great. I just wanted to sleep and that kind of thing. But
Can you get him to wake up and do something, please?
But he
Covering
only
his
has
eyes.
2 skills right now: eating, sleeping, and evacuating his bowels. So I guess 3 skills, but
Well, that's 3 skills. That's something. That's
more
amazing.
than most babies.
He's enough to be elected to the city council anyway. Hey, Nick, on
Which district?
On the homeless front, you know what I thought was a big story that we hadn't talked about was the Loma fire. The fact that that fire erupted, you know, right in the middle of the city, and you know, it was right after that the council moved to close down homeless encampments and stuff. And then it seemed almost as if there might even be some discernible progress on working on homelessness.
Yeah, well, there actually has been. And this is a case where the Loma fire, which one was that, May? It nearly took off the whole hillside above, behind City College. And it just freaked everybody out. The guy who started the fire was an arson fire, not a homeless encampment fire. It was a meth head who was homeless, who was, you know, basically trying to set himself on fire, it turns out. He started this fire, and the council responded with amazing speed and panic. And they said, we got to do something. So we got to clear out all the homeless encampments and put people over at the Rose Garden Inn over in San Roque. So San Roque got a taste of what the East Side has been getting, and we've been seeing about it on, you know, the next door. You know, it's sort of staple for them. But they cleared a lot of the camps out, which we were told before could not be done. The question now is, as the Rose Garden Inn is about to sunset, where do you put those people?
Yeah. Well, let's ask the mayor-elect. Randy, will you pledge here today to end homelessness in the first 100 days of your administration?
Didn't you hear Barney? Barney said nobody wants anything to happen. And I said, I'm the guy for the job. No, we definitely have a long ways to go, but going back to Josh's point about communication, the fact that, you know, the county does health and human services, and they have a lot of money in different departmental silos, and those folks hardly talk to each other, let alone to us. And I think that's got to end. I've already talked to a couple of the supervisors about it, and they're on board. I mean, it's time to look at who does health and human services and why. The city chips in here and there. I mean, we put in our few $100,000s of dollars. We do this. We spent a bunch of money on the Rose Motel, and I won't go into that any further with Ms. Harmon present. But when it comes to actually making an impact, you know, when we add in some, it's like the amount of money we're going to spend on the county parking issues to put in the small homes on Santa Barbara Street. I mean, that's our you know, contribution. But, you know, we all pay taxes in the county. We all are part of this whole thing. There shouldn't be a division between county and city in terms of fiefdoms and how we approach things like homelessness. Homelessness does not know a border. So it's important that we get back and we sit down with each other and really figure out how we do this collaboratively, not in these siloed departments.
Hey, Josh, so the other side of the other end of the telescope in terms of homelessness is obviously housing, and we had these 2 big Senate bills come in to really encourage high density housing throughout the state, and people like Ms. Harmon and her left-wing colleagues just want to pave over the whole place. But where do you see that going next year?
Wow, Jerry, I thought you'd show a little more respect to Harmon.
Well, she won't wake the baby up. I want to see the baby.
See the baby. All right. I'm obviously the city is pushed back quite a bit on SB 9, and so they've passed their own local ordinance in terms of how to implement it. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I don't see it being the end of the world that a lot of people have been talking about. I think that obviously there will be some homeowners who take advantage of this, but I don't think it's going to really make a significant impact either way. Barney Brantingham is hitting on a really good point, which is that Santa Barbarans, for the most part, the majority, as we saw with the mayor election, they kind of, want things to change, but just like ever so slightly, and not so much so that they really want to feel it, but they want to be able to say it. So I think the community is definitely pushing back against this idea of high density. Obviously we have a generational battle because we do have a younger group of residents who want to see more housing. We're still sort of seeing how that's going to work out and whether they're going to be able to seize power. But from the votership, it looks like we've got a mayor who's been there for a new mayor who's been there 9 years. By the way, every time I would say 8 or 10, Randy, your wife Janet would send me this email and say, "Can't you just say 9?" So, 9 years. So I think that we're still going to see the steady sort of Sheila Lodge kind of, I don't want to say cloud, but sort of energy and aura sort of dominating that conversation.
Okay.
Hey, Randy, you're the reincarnation of Sheila Lodge.
I was going to say,
You were the good in the dress.
oh my.
I got a question for you, Randy. In terms of communication, I heard somebody, a City Hall insider, say that the relations between council members wasn't so bad that it needed an intervention, but they needed an exorcism. I won't say who said it, but
Meagan knows.
How are you going to magically transform this? And what do you think about given these COVID numbers, about having the council members get back in the flesh, in the council chambers where they have to actually look and deal with each other on at least a weekly basis?
Well, if you look at it, the supervisors are already in chambers, the school board's in chambers. We can certainly do that. And people that, are uncomfortable with it can either sit more remotely, sit in an office and beam in and do whatever. But I do think the whole COVID protocol thing made communication that much more difficult, and it dragged the meetings out. And I don't think, I don't know how council members actually feel about one another. It's not really a big concern. But it was there were definitely lacks of breaks in the chain of logic and communication and going forward as a team. At least council did not present like a team, and I think that was one of the bigger problems in terms of the public confidence going forward and making progress on their whatever a goofy program Meagan came up with. But going on those.
Yeah, Meagan, you're there shaking your head, and you've been viciously attacked on about 6 issues since the last time you got to talk.
This baby thing's not going to protect you. I'm sorry.
So let me throw up a softball to you. What do you think the difference is going to be between Mayor Kathy Murillo and Mayor Randy Rowse?
Softball, yeah.
Well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I think there's going to be more jokes, right, Randy? I hear you're already preparing your one-liners.
That's a good thing.
But look, I'm going to be mayor pro tem, so he's got to watch himself. Every time he's absent, that's when I'm going to push forward the transformative policies that I've been advocating for the last 2.5 years.
I'm going to sleep at City Hall.
Barney, do you recall in all your years of covering the city and City Hall, anybody getting cranked up about quote unquote transformative policies, as Ms. Harmon has just stated?
No, nothing like that. Jerry, when I said I didn't want anything to change, I meant crazy things. Santa Barbara don't like crazy change, like huge, high density, high rise, nothing like that.
We're looking at you, Meagan. Yeah, she's
I'm the queen of compromise, Jerry. What I love is we just end up in the middle and everybody's happy.
I can't believe that baby's still sleeping. What?
I know, he just does not want to listen to me right now. He's like, I can't with what you're saying.
The baby's not wearing a mask.
Oh, man.
He is making noises though. I actually thought he would perk up when he heard your voices because he's heard Newsmakers in utero. I would set my phone kind of on my stomach, you know, so he knows you guys. And I thought there would be like a spark of recognition, but
No,
he's not a fan.
maybe he's retreating.
Hey, hey, Josh, on the, let's talk about a little bit more small bore, but far more gossipy politics. How did Meagan Harmon manage to ace out Doss Williams for the Coastal Commission seat in a move that was cheered, I think, really throughout the not only the city but the county?
I think the state.
I just want to say we're probably going to have the most high level coverage of the mayor pro tem in the history of the city of Santa Barbara. When are you going on vacation, Randy? No.
Never.
I think that Councilmember Harmon, from what I'm told, because I didn't really cover that, Jade covered that, but she put in a lot of work, a lot of research, met with a lot of people who are important to the decision of the California Coastal Commission appointment. And she does have regional connections, not being just from the city of Santa Barbara. And I know Doss Williams tried, but I think that, it's sort of like, I've made this analogy. I don't intend it to be like, anything, but like, Meagan Harmon is sort of like the new improved version of Doss Williams. Like Doss Williams in the early 2000s was sort of this rising star, this ambitious person, and he was going to go super far. Okay. And he's kind of comfortable now with the Board of Supervisors. And Meagan Harmon is sort of like the most ambitious council member that we've seen since then. And she's got sort of a broader reach than him. And I think she, at the end of the day, was just more qualified in getting that seat. And Doss didn't really, Doss fought for it. Of course, he wanted it, but it wasn't like a nasty battle. He supported her, he endorsed her. I mean, I think they're working together. So, I mean, I think that they're supportive of each other. So
And she's
I
better
think,
looking.
Gary, the short answer is she's the most qualified. Why do you even have to ask the
Do you
question?
agree
Come
with
on,
that,
Josh.
Jade?
Josh, you have really surpassed yourself in terms of brown nosing here. I mean,
Hey, Nick, so we've got Councilmember Harmon, Randy Rowse. All we need is one more council member and you to have a quorum.
We
So
Oh my God, Josh.
violate
I
the
mean,
Brown Act.
in all due respect to Meagan Harmon, she does not have nearly the chops or the experience in terms of coastal matters that Doss did, but neither does she have the statewide avalanche of opposition that he had. And they came out of the woodwork to blow him out of the water because they were mad at him over a number of issues, but cannabis being high on the chart.
Nick Welsh, are you saying that Councilmember Harmon was not qualified enough on her own
I didn't say that. I said she's not as
and
qualified.
it took
as
a deficiency from a man for her to get that? Is that what you're saying?
Megan's thinking, now, why did I think this was a good idea to come on today?
Well, and I mean, I don't know if you caught this comment on EdPat, Nick, but as someone thoughtfully pointed out, I have indeed been to the beach before. So
You have?
I have, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I repeat, she's better looking.
Jade, you were the only one who actually covered the story, so we might ask you for a question. How exactly did Meagan shiv Doss to get this position?
I do agree with a lot of what Josh said. She's very qualified for the position. She's a, new bright face that could bring maybe some different perspective. And she also really talked a lot, at least when I interviewed her, about the position, about balancing the Coastal Commission's, agendas and duties with the local needs of Santa Barbara. And I think that was really important to a lot of people. And I just also agree with Nick. Doss does have a lot of enemies in Sacramento, but I don't think that had to do with why Meagan was.
It was Susan
Oh,
Jordan.
yeah.
Susan Jordan torpedoed them. You heard it here first. I want to welcome in our notoriously publicity shy producer, the senior high-ranking chief executive of Newsmakers Inc., Hap Freund, who's speaking to us apparently
Hey, Hap.
from
Hey.
France.
My backyard on the mesa.
Happy New Year, brother. How are you?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Last day of the year, so I made it this far.
All right, we've had a lively discussion of the biggest story of the year, but we've been waiting for you, the only person on the earth who has probably watched every episode of Newsmakers TV this year. What's the biggest story of the year in Santa Barbara?
The biggest story. Well, Randy's here. I'll say Randy's victory. That's a good question. I was thinking more about the biggest story for next year.
What do you think that is?
Well, I think it's going to be a lot of interesting hires for the city. And
Well, that's a good point, because we haven't mentioned the departure of Paul Casey or the famed Los Angeles Magazine story or Anthony Wagner or
right,
any of that.
we got a
Any
new
of that
police
stuff.
chief, we got new everything coming in.
Yeah, we got a new police chief. That's right. Randy and Megan, where do things stand on the searches for those positions?
Well, the original plan when Paul was still here was to have that done by Labor Day. And of course, that whole changed. And then Bernie managed to be able to extend his retirement thing with CalPERS for a few more months. So he's here for a few months anyway. But I think we're going to be firing those searches up again here very quickly. It's hard right now, though. Recruiting for anybody in any position anywhere has been the common complaint of every single kind of business and government agency around. So, the police chief pool is even, one of those things that's going to be hard to fill. I would love to see us, as we do these searches, really hopefully get some good, local candidates, people that are here in town that qualify and want to be that. But certainly we're going to do our due diligence and look all around and get the best qualified we possibly can. But we've had a few misfires, let's face it. And we need to make sure we get this right.
Yeah. Megan, would you chime in on that? Not only the police chief, but we're down a bunch of police officers as well, which is also difficult. You've been leading the charge, of course, to defund the police, but
Fake news. That's fake news, everybody.
no, that is, I made that up. But no, just the Citizen Police Review Commission process is something that you've engaged. Do you think that's one of the reasons why police officers are bailing and it's difficult to find them?
The civilian oversight system
Yes.
specifically? No, I don't think so. I think being a police officer is an incredibly difficult job. It's always been an incredibly difficult job. And then you layer on top of that a really tense social conversation about the role of policing in our community. And then on top of that, a whole new slew of responsibilities that really shouldn't fall within the purview of our law enforcement officers, dealing with homelessness, dealing with mental health crises, dealing with substance abuse disorder. I mean, we put so much on them. So I think it's just, maybe the answer is yes, and it's not one thing, but we're seeing this across the country. It's not just an issue of recruitment in Santa Barbara. It's everywhere. But I actually, maybe this is really Pollyanna of me, and I'm sure some of you on this call are going to think it's a little naive.
No, you can get away with it with the baby, I think.
I
Go
know,
ahead.
right? That's why I brought him. No, but I think setting up systems like civilian oversight where there's mutual trust, mutual engagement will actually encourage folks to want to get involved with law enforcement again. The point to me is not about gotcha. It's about really building respect, trust, and community engagement with our law enforcement. And to me, that's what's going to drive recruitment more than I think burying our heads in the sand and saying like, we're not going to do anything. So
Hey, Hap, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
Well, just to chime in there, Jerry, there's definitely been controversy within that civilian review board deliberation, but it's important to remember that Barney Brantingham, the current police chief, supports the idea of it. And so does Sean Hill, one of his high-ranking lieutenants. And they argue that, if done right, which again, the details are crucial, it builds greater trust, not less trust with the community. And I think the other issue is just that throughout the nation, people are leaving law enforcement in droves. It's a tough job, and the pressures and the scrutinies and the demands are increasing, as well as the accountability. So a lot of people are getting out. It is not a Santa Barbara thing.
Yeah, Hap, you're sort of you're kind of an unofficial cop. You're part of the, what are they called? The brown shirts? No, that's
The volunteers in policing. But you're
Yes,
gonna ruin my reputation if you make this too public. But
so what do you hear?
they are down about 25 to 30% in sworn officers from what they're allocated. So it's not a budget issue. It's not anybody trying to defund the police. And then even their dispatch is down about a third of the people they should have. So that's a serious problem, and they're aggressively recruiting, but so is every other police department in the country. So I don't think the civilian review board is really going to be an issue. I know that the police would like some representation on it. The state passed a bill this year. Finally, we're like the 46 or 47 state to finally have a civilian, not a civilian review, but a ability to defund police, not defund, delicense, I'm sorry. So 46 or 47 states had it. We were like one of the 4 last to get it. And it's basically police can be decertified. The state could decertify doctors, lawyers, even barbers, but not police. So on that state commission, unless I misread the legislation, there are police representation. I would imagine that in the long run, there'll be some police representation on the whatever civilian review board we set up.
Yeah, Randy, that was a big issue actually, or a big difference between contrast between you and Kathy, who you defeated. I mean, you really felt that the cops were not being supported at City Hall enough.
Yeah, I think we got caught up in the national dialogue as opposed to looking at what was probably one of the most progressive, community-minded police forces. We were kind of a model almost for community policing for all over the country. The things that we do, the way our cops are. I walk a little bit of State Street with one every day when I can, just to watch these people interact with people. They're amazing, and like Meagan said, they're also tasked with being, counselors and therapists and the whole thing out in the field. They do a much broader spectrum of things than they're actually trained to do. And so in speaking with Chief Molina, who is obviously the gold standard when it comes to police chiefs, he's got some really creative ideas and very interested in things like what Hap's doing with volunteer or either volunteer and or civilian types of police presence, or I should say not police presence, but just uniform presence that can do a lot of the tasks that you don't need a sworn officer to do, and expanding our entire scope that way, which would also fit in with the narrative that's going on across the country. But we were already there, and that's why I was upset. Yeah, I was upset with the lack of acknowledgement from council about who these guys are right now, who these people are. And I think that we've got a great base to work from, and having Barney there leading the charge right now is absolutely the best thing that could have happened to us. So I'm very excited about that.
It's too bad he's not 20 years younger.
Oh my God.
He said to me that if he keeps trying to retire, he said that if Mrs. Malakian told him this is his last job. So
yes,
he's
I spoke with Nancy about
he's got to be out by October, November.
Speaking of people named Barney, who it's too bad they're not 20 years younger. Hey, Barney, when we talk about, you and I met back, before the earth cooled the last time, and Josh and everyone, it's something called a newspaper, which, as we can tell from this platform, barely exists. You spent your whole career covering news, and now you've been out of it for a couple of years. How do you get your news now? And what's your sense of how well Santa Barbara is being covered?
Well, I get my news mostly from 10 different sources. I read the Independent, of course, and I'm online reading them. And I don't watch too much TV, but enough that I feel I have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And so it's better to, I know people who seem to zero in on one news source or one website, and that's all they know, that's all they care about. And that's a mistake, because you talk to them and all they can do is spout the current political line of one newspaper or one website, especially
Yeah.
websites.
All right.
People
right,
get
Meagan,
bogged down.
Meagan, here's your chance. You get to fire back. What's your view on how the local media, such as it is, covers City Hall, covers city issues in general?
Hey, you three especially are second to none.
No.
Yeah, she had to throw Nick and Jerry in there. Kindness.
No,
Oh,
you know
but I
what?
mean, I mean, one of the complaints you hear a lot is that, oh, the media focuses too much on conflict and not on the important, touchy-feely, positive, wonderful, progressive, lefty things we're doing. Do you think that's a fair criticism?
No, I don't think. I mean, look, I'm a policy wonk, so I'm personally very interested in the policy side of things, but personality often drives policy. So, I think it is relevant. I think it's important. And frankly, people in Santa Barbara are watching those meetings right alongside all of you, so to the extent you can see it, everyone else can see it too. So it's, I don't know. I think even if it is just a perception, it's become a reality. And as Randy said, it's something for us to work on. Not necessarily who likes to, but how we communicate and how effective we are on the dais. And I don't think it's the media driving the story. I think it's the media reporting what everyone who watches us from 2 to 11 p.m. or whatever can see. And so, it's an important mirror for us. And there's lots of lessons over the last year. Speaking for myself, I guess, only just in terms of how to communicate and how to be more effective, because if my interest is in policy, I got to make sure that I don't get caught up in some of the other stuff that can really drive it in a direction that I'm not interested in going.
Very well
Jerry?
said and very, very diplomatic.
Can I weigh in on this, Jerry?
Well, sure, Josh. I mean, since Meagan types out her 300-word quotes and you just insert them into your story, I think it's good for you to follow up on.
Jerry, jealousy is not very becoming of you in these years. You might want to recalibrate and reset for 2022. I think we have an embarrassment of riches in our journalism coverage here. I think we're way better than we should be for this size of the market. And I can name a million names, right? But Nick Welsh is like incredible, irreplaceable. I don't know a lot of communities have somebody like him who have that knowledge along with his writing chops. And the Independent has everyone there is like super talented and does a great job in the fields that they cover. We got Jade, who's new and second. Was this her second year, Jade? I don't know. She's really
Jade is the best.
Jade is really done really well in a short amount of time right out of college, and is right up there and covering so many issues that I can't even cover. She does a great job. So we have these Nick, who's like the legend and icon, and we got the future, we have Jade, and we've got all these people in the middle like myself who are doing a good job trying to report the news, and so I think we're all really good. We're all really talented. It's too bad. It goes back to the larger issue that we don't have one place that we could work where we could all get paid what we deserve to get paid, where we could all be working on the short-term, midterm, long-term investigative stories and have that protection from the high up and be able to go do some serious work in the community. And I think that's too bad. But I think I mean, we're great. We have great journalism here. And Jerry, I'd be remiss. You, by the way, are, I mean, your TV thing is incredible. Like what you've been able to do and to pull us all together. And I walk into the grocery store, this is not a joke. I'm literally once every 2 weeks, probably somebody says, "Are you Josh Molina? I saw you. You're Jerry's friend. You're the guy on Jerry's show. You should be nicer to Jerry." People
Yeah.
come up to me.
Yeah,
and
no, I was
say
going to
that.
bring that up. All right.
So I mean, your multimedia platform has really made an impact here too in ways that no one else was doing before.
All right.
So
enough
I'm gonna
gushing about
toot
each
our own-
other here for,
I'm
all right,
gonna toot our own
we're
horn
almost
for-
out of time. I want to go around the horn. I'm sorry, Nick.
I wanted to toot our own
Oh,
horn
Barney.
just to follow up on Josh. This is our 90th podcast, Zoomcast of the calendar year.
Wow.
90 of them.
Wow.
And according to the tally that you sent me, Jerry, unless I misplaced a few zeros again, we had 19,000 views of our YouTube productions and 266,300 minutes as of a week ago. And I'm sure more people have fallen asleep since then watching.
Well, just on this.
More than a 250,000 minutes.
The best
250,000
substitute for
minutes.
Lunesta and Ambien out there.
That's
I-
right.
I'm just- Someday we'll have to translate that into hours, but okay. We got just a couple minutes left. I just want to go around the horn real quick about what folks should look for in 2022 as a big story that's going to affect all of us, or maybe we know about it, maybe we don't. Jade, let me start with you.
I have my fellowship story coming up. So there's going to be, even apart from that, I think at Newshawk, I'm going to work a lot more on investigating the county's mental health resources, where they're lacking and maybe where they aren't lacking, to try and make some change, get better resources, more help for those people who need it. So that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to coming out this next year.
All right, Nick, you've heard Randy Rowse pledge to end homelessness in the first 100 days. So what will you be focusing on once that's all taken care of?
It's going to wind up being a lot of the same. The reality is that the homeless mental health issue. I mean, the grand jury report just came out on how well we're doing with diverting people from jail and buried down in the fine print. Said, oh, by the way, our psychiatric health facility, our PUP unit, where people go in an acute crisis, we have 16 beds, and we should have 3 times that many for a county our size, if not more than that. Grand juries have been saying that for the last 35 years, and people like me have been writing stories about it, and it's great. Jade is going to be jumping on that bandwagon because it's a big bandwagon and it needs all the horses it can get. But the mental health issues are getting worse, not better. There is progress, but that story will obviously be a big one.
All right. Barney, what are you looking for in 2022?
I'm looking for people to take this virus thing more seriously. My granddaughter is not inoculated, will not get inoculated. I was supposed to go out tonight to dinner with a woman who doesn't have any shots whatsoever. And why are so many people opting out of safety?
Good point. Good point. Hap, what are you looking for
Well,
in the next 90 shows?
next 19 shows. I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the supervisory race with the redistricting, and see. I don't think that'll be interesting, and to see if anybody can challenge our sheriff, who is interesting.
All right. Meagan, you're going to have your hands full between council, coastal commission, and the young man I
Managing
like to
Jack's
call
political red.
Jack. Yes. What are you looking forward to in 2022?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some really interesting stuff at Coastal. I'll kind of stick to that. The Munger Hall is definitely going to come in some capacity. First, probably as a conversation, and then maybe more substantively to the commission ultimately. That may not happen in 2022, but it's definitely being teed up. And I think that's going to get a lot of attention. Also sort of maybe not quite as exciting, but underbilled is the tension between the Coastal Commission's policies and local government's interest when it comes to sea level rise adaptation. And we've seen that play out over just the last few months that I've been on the commission. And I really think it's going to come to a head this year as we try to figure out how communities can move forward with their adaptation plans in a way that's reasonable and logical. And I think that's maybe a little bit in the weeds, but it's going to have big implications for cities like ours, and it's coming up.
All right, Josh, before you go off to your daughter's birthday, and happy birthday to the other Meagan.
Yes, we got a birthday party 100 feet away going in a minute. So I think the rise of Councilmember Harmon as the real mayor of Santa Barbara is without a doubt going to be the story of 2022. Randy's just a shell. He's just there. He's not really going to be doing
We're just
much.
pulling his strings, you know?
I like what Hap said. Politically, whatever Greg Hart decides to do is going to cause a lot of other things to happen with the second district supervisorial race or the assembly. I know a lot of people want to run. They want to be elected in a higher office. They think it's their calling. They want to do it. They're trying to find a spot. And so they're interested in running. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. I think school district's going to be interesting, what the pushback is there. And obviously, as Barney Brantingham said, COVID, it's back. I mean, it's almost like it was. What's 2022 going to look like? Are we going to see shutdowns again? It's kind of sad that we're back here in this spot.
All right, Mayor Rouse, what do you think?
Well, I mean, for as far as big stories, my package of sweeping reforms has got to be the number one. But I actually hope to go back into the whole communication thing with our fellow government agencies. I hope to collaborate with my fellow mayors in the county and talk about what the heavy hand of Sacramento means to us as communities when we're trying to do a one-size-fits-all legislation from Sacramento that can have real negative effects here. There's and like Barney was talking about with the high rises and the density. I go, well, that's all well and good, but where does that ever produce affordable housing? The answer is it's not. So, you know, what do we do? How do we preserve our communities? How do we move forward? How do we make them vital? How do we get the economic engine cranked back up? You know, we're a very heavy hospitality economy, is why we got hurt probably as bad as anyone did in terms of the COVID shutdowns. So how do we recover from that, and how do we change that profile, or do we change that profile? What do we do? So there's a lot of that going on, but it's going to take communication, collaboration, and getting outside of the walls of City Hall, and really sitting down and talking with people and finding out what makes it tick.
All right. Well, Hap and I have been talking. Last year we had the Journal of the Plague Year, and this year we had Journal of the Vaccine Year. We're trying to figure out what's called next year. I'm afraid it's going to be a Journal of the Variant Year. That we're only to O in the alphabet, and as Barney points out, the resistance to vaccines is really driving this thing now, and so
Insane.
Hopefully I'll be proved wrong, but that's what I'm left for. Well, hey, listen, I want to thank everybody for taking the time on New Year's Eve to be with us, and all of the cheap shots and insults and attacks aside. It's really been very wonderful to talk with you all and to hear your thoughts on what's happening. Nick Welsh, Barney Brantingham, Hap Freund, Meagan Harmon, and Jack, Josh Molina, and Jade Martinez-Pogue, and of course, Mayor-elect Randy Rowse. So happy New Year to you all. Stay safe, be celebrating safely with your loved ones, and we will see you all back here on Newsmakers in 2022. Thanks.
Hey, Happy New Year, everybody.
New Year.
New Year.